We are not doctors. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as medical advice. Consult your physician before starting any workout routine. This is the Marshall Hart Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back. How you doing? This is the Marshall Hart Podcast coming at you live. Not really live. For those of you on YouTube, hello. Good to see you. For those of you listening elsewhere, sorry, you don't get to see my old mug on the thing. You just get to hear me. But for the YouTube crowd, I've got the new thing along the bottom there telling people where they can find the podcast other than here on YouTube if they want to just listen. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. I'll probably tweak it a little bit. It kind of something looks a little crooked there, but I might have to tweak it a little. But for now, it's fine. Learning how to do overlays and stuff has been an interesting thing to do for the last couple of days. It's not really that hard. I'm sure people would have charged a lot of money to do this because it takes time, but you know, with a little bit of effort, you can learn to do it by yourself and, stop paying people because you're lazy, which is what I do all the time. I'm too lazy to do it myself, so here's some money. Just go ahead and do it for me. Cardiac rehab last night went pretty well, except the highest they got my heart rate was about 88. So they're going to crank it up a little bit next week because they're realizing that they're not actually exercising my heart very much. They're just having me walk on a treadmill and ride on a bicycle at a very low pace. And hey, I'm not opposed to that. I know this has to be a gradual increase and things are going to have to, take time and go slow so we don't, overtax my heart so soon after a heart attack, not realizing what it might do in the future. So I'm okay with it going slow. But they are definitely going to have to kick it up a notch next week. The therapist told me that they're going to, because they want it to, at a minimum, get over 106, somewhere around there. So what they're doing right now isn't doing that for me. So we're going to have to do something different. Well, put some, elevation on the treadmill, get a little faster pace or something. The bicycle doesn't really seem to do that much for me, other than hurt my butt because it's a very uncomfortable seat. So they're leaving it up to me. I might try the elliptical at some point, but I think I'm going to avoid the bicycle and just go on the treadmill and just imagine myself rucking. I'm just going for a ruck march somewhere, a little force march up through the Alps, just like in the old days during the 80s down in southern Germany. Then West Germany. Man, that was fun. I had a lot of fun down there. In general, if you don't know this about me, yes, I'm a veteran. I spent quite a few years in the military in between 1986 and 2014. So I got to do a lot of fun things and really enjoyed my time that I spent in Europe and, going up in the Alps, except in the wintertime when it was really, really cold and it would snow a lot. That was no fun to go on field exercises up there, but I loved it. It was beautiful. I had a good time there. Someday I would love to go back, but I keep saying that and I keep not doing it. So that's where we're going to be with that. But ruck marching up into the Alps and in the wintertime and doing all those fun army things that we all did in our youth. Sometimes you miss it, but your lower back and your knees don't miss it very much at all. Mine don't. I know that. So anyway, cardiac rehab. I'm going to just have to do that. I think I'm just going to have to ruck it and, get a little extra strain on my heart because what they're doing now just isn't doing it. Maybe we can walk uphill at on a number 3. They put it on a number 1 uphill incline yesterday, but still had me walking at a 2.9, 2.8, 2.9. It was still a 20-minute mile pace. So, yeah, still didn't do much. So we might have to kick that up to a 3. 3 incline and push it towards a 4 or something. I know when I was on a medical, I had a permanent profile because I had 2 knee surgeries in the same year. So they threw me on a permanent profile and I had to do the walk instead of the run for the PT test in the Army. And I think you had to do 2 miles in 25 minutes, something like that, depending on your age, I think. No, mile and a half. It was a mile and a half, I think, in 20 minutes, 20 or 22 minutes. So I remember training for that because I'd never done it before, and I'm not a good runner. So when I ran, I just ran and prayed a lot that I was going to make it there in time. So when I did the walk, though, I had no idea. I kind of have short legs. So I had to get on the treadmill and figure it out. And I think I had to walk at like a 4.5 or something pace on the treadmill. And then I would add an incline because I wanted it to be harder than it should be when I go do it for the PT test. And that worked pretty good. I trained for that for like 3 months until because I knew at this certain point I was going to have to do the PT test with the walking part. And it worked. I did it. So, maybe they'll have to kick it up somewhere there because that was a brisk pace of a walk. You're kind of speed walking, especially if you're, old and have short legs. But we'll see what happens with that. I'm going to work out either tonight or once this weekend. I have to do cardiac rehab again Monday evening. I'm going back to work on Monday. And I feel comfortable with that right now because yesterday and today, I feel pretty good. I mean, I get a little bit of nausea in the morning after I load up all these medicines. Not as bad as it was before. So switching over to Plavix, I'm happy about that. But I feel pretty good. I don't feel bad. So I'm not feeling weak. I'm not shaky. I'm not unsteady. So I'm doing pretty good, except last night again, the arrhythmia hit me. This time it was kind of short. It only lasted for about 10 minutes, but it was long enough for me to get up and put the blood pressure cuff and the heart rate monitor on so that I could log it. And it passed in about 10 minutes. It was long enough for me to get one good blood pressure reading with my pulse rate in there and get it logged into the system and transferred over to my phone onto my app so that I could have that so I can show the doctor. Because like I mentioned a couple of days ago, they're going to put me on a 2-week heart monitor. So I want to be able to show them kind of the pattern, and there isn't really a pattern. It's very random, except that I've kind of noticed that it hits when I lay down. I wasn't actually laying down. I was kind of lounging with my feet up in a recliner, watching a movie when it hit. But I was laying kind of at a specific angle, kind of off to one side. And I was doing the same thing last night. And that's when it hit. But the length of time that it lasts may have something to do with how quickly I realize what's happening and I get up. Because as soon as I realized it was happening, I got up out of the chair and went over and put on the blood pressure cuff and, took my BP and my heart rate because I wanted to log it. But it passed pretty quick after that. The first time it hit me a couple of days ago when I was sitting in that recliner, I stayed there and kind of analyzed what was going on and was taking my own pulse and looking at things and checking my blood pressure. But I stayed sitting down. I didn't get up and start moving around. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know, because it lasted a lot longer the other night, 2 nights ago when it hit, or Tuesday. So I guess that would be 3 days ago. Last night, it only lasted for about 10 minutes, but I really think it may have something to do with the fact that I got up and started moving around, started walking around, and was mobile instead of just sitting there and letting my heart stay the same. And maybe you can kickstart it into going back into a normal rhythm by, calling on it to do more work or something. I'm not sure. I don't understand this thing. I just know that it happens and it's weird. I don't think very many people are too worried about it at this point since it's not happening all the time. But I'm curious to see what the 2-week heart monitor is going to show. I won't have that probably for another few days. But I'll keep you guys posted on that because it's a neat new thing. It's not the last time I had to wear one because quite a few years ago somebody saw something on an EKG they didn't like, and it was probably one of these arrhythmia attacks. But they put me on a heart rate monitor for 24 hours, 24 or 48 hours. I can't remember. But it's the one that had the leads and the box. You had to carry around the whole thing. Jeez. So this thing is just one piece that you put on, and it communicates with like a mobile device that comes with it, and you don't have all the wiring and all the tangling up and the discomfort and stuff, apparently. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to testing that out and showing it to you guys so you can understand it with me, because really that's all I'm trying to do is help people understand what this is like, what it's like to go through the recovery of a heart attack and deal with all the stuff, all the medical stuff and the medicine stuff and the technology stuff and everything else. Because to be honest with you, having a heart attack was the scariest thing that I think any of us have gone through in this family in a while. So, because you just don't know. There are so many unknowns. You're having a heart attack and you don't know, hey, all right, I could just die right now. Is that what's happening? And then you really don't know what to do. There's nothing you can do except surrender to the doctors and let them figure out what to do for you and with you. But they don't even know either. I mean, all they know is if your heart stops, they're going to zap you with some stuff and start CPR. They don't know if your heart's going to stop. They have no way of knowing that. They have no way of guessing. So, yeah, it's a pretty scary thing. And to imagine going through it, I know a lot of people, okay, let's get gruesome. A lot of people wonder, when I get old, how am I going to go? What's going to happen? What's most likely for me? What's most likely for me is not dying of old age as a 98-year-old happy guy on a beach somewhere in Florida. I never expected to live past 50, if you want to know the truth. I did way too many stupid and dangerous things throughout my life that I never expected to live this long. So I had no plan B. My plan B is just ride this baby out as far as it'll go. But I didn't expect it to be a heart condition, because I thought I was taking care of myself. I stayed active, and all those things, but genetics is what's going to kill you. And, different people are more susceptible to different types of stuff. Like I had high cholesterol that I fought with for decades. And, my diet probably wasn't the best, because a lot of the times I was more concerned with being strong and gaining muscle mass, things like that. I wasn't concerned with, lean meats and keeping my heart healthy. I thought keeping my heart healthy was just going to be a matter of exercising and staying active. Apparently not. So my arteries decided to murder me. And they tried doing that. They started a couple of years ago. So I assume my heart is pretty strong. It's just the arteries feeding my heart that suck ass. And maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. Maybe my heart has weakened over the years because of the restricted blood flow. I don't really know. But we're going to find out. I guess that's what cardiac rehab is for. But, you don't know. And then once you've had one, even if it's a mild one or like a moderate one, I guess mine was kind of moderate, intermediate. It wasn't, I don't know. It sucked, telling you that much. I don't know if they rate them on a scale of you should have died and you're lucky to be alive, or, most people survive this kind. I didn't have the deadliest kind. I know that. So, I mean, that's a bonus. That's good. But once you've had one, the likelihood of having another, the likelihood of having other problems later on in life, like having a stroke. Because obviously you have arterial issues all over the place. I already had the peripheral artery disease surgery and stents, and now I've had the heart stents put in. So, I'm a stent, depository right here. I have 9 of them now. So am I potentially going to have a stroke later on in life? Am I going to have another heart attack? Am I going to continue to have heart problems? Is the restricted blood going in going to start causing heart failure? Is my heart just slowly going to die until it can't operate anymore? Maybe by then we'll be robots and I can be a cyborg, and I can have a cyborg heart and better knees. Maybe, that would be cool.
We are not doctors. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as medical advice. Consult your physician before starting any workout routine. This is the Marshall Hart Podcast.
Hey everybody, how you doing? This is part 2 of episode 20. It's episode 20, so why not? We'll have 2 parts to it. On the YouTube video, I'll just splice them together and we can have just one big happy episode for the YouTube crowd. But for everybody else listening to the podcast, currently they are restricted to 15 minutes apiece. And I was going to go over, so I might as well have a part 2. But what I was getting at is that I don't think anybody ever really has an idea of what this is like. Whenever a celebrity or a sports star has a heart attack or something, they don't really come out and say, this is exactly what it was like. And this is what I had to deal with because, hey, guess what? They're all rich, right? They can pay for whatever they need. They can hire someone to do their laundry for them. So they, aren't facing the same things that the average people are going to face whenever they wind up having a heart attack. That's for sure. And believe me, I'm average. So I don't know. I figured somebody could maybe benefit from this whole thing. And what I was getting at was you really have to surrender to this process because some of it you have control over. Like, I'm going to eat right, I'm going to exercise, but some of it's simply genetic and some of it's luck. And so there's no real way to predict who's going to have a heart attack and who isn't. I think I told everyone before in one of the earlier shows that there was a marathon runner I knew who was at the pinnacle of health and physical fitness. And he had a heart attack, had a massive heart attack, almost died. And he couldn't believe it either. And the doctor's like, it was just genetically in the cards for you. You were just going to have a heart attack no matter what you did for yourself. So, you just never know. There's no way to predict it. And when it happens, it's very, very shocking, especially if you consider yourself to be a healthy person. But I did not expect to have heart problems later on in life. I keep hitting things. Sorry, you're going to hear that on the recording. But I didn't expect that to be the problem that I would have. I wasn't really sure, what was going to get me eventually. But I really didn't think it was going to be heart problems because heart problems weren't discussed that much in my family history. That doesn't mean they didn't exist. It just means they weren't discussed. And perhaps we don't know enough of our ancestors to understand, some of our long-term health issues genetically. For my family, you may, but for us, we didn't really keep track of too many people. So we don't know who died of what or what was the most common cause of death in our families. We know that our lifespans are pretty long on both sides of my family. So I have to think there's the likelihood that I would live to be into my 80s. I don't know if living into my 80s is going to be worth it, to be honest. The quality of life, you have to wonder about that. So, if you're going to be 95 years old, hey, great, you lived to be 95, but what was that quality of life like in those last 5 to 10 years? Maybe not so great. So I have a standing, directive for my family that when I revert back to infancy, when I can no longer communicate, feed myself, or wipe my own ass, it's time to let me go. So stop telling them to, hit the AED again and bring me back. No more CPR at that point because I kind of figure I'm not really living anyway. But that's not necessarily a do not resuscitate order. That's if I were to fall down tomorrow, yeah, sure, bring me back. It's tomorrow. I'm not 90. But, things might be different when I'm 90, 95 years old. Who knows? So the other aspects of this are maintaining a sense of humor. Am I able to do that? Yeah, I am a goofy guy. I love to laugh and make people laugh all the time. I make light of everything. I joke about everything. And I think it helps me. because, it's a very serious thing. It's incredibly serious. And I know how serious the impact of this was on my family and on me. And I don't mean to make light of it, for their benefit, because, this is a very, very serious thing for them. Fortunately, they understand me and they understand my sense of humor and the way I deal with things. So they know that me joking about it is just a coping mechanism for me. It doesn't mean that it wasn't serious. It doesn't mean that I'm not taking it seriously. Doesn't matter. It just means this is how I cope with things. I like to make light of things and joke about them. And there are quite a few stories the last few weeks having a heart condition and talking to doctors and nurses, and some of the things that came out of my mouth. I don't know. Somebody else might have to tell those stories eventually. But, uh, you know, it's not everybody's going to have that same approach to life. I kind of have this morbid sense of humor. It could be a military thing from, we all sort of had this dark, morbid sense of humor. Not all of us, but, a good portion of us. And I sort of fit in with that. I hate to sound like a typical kind of guy, because I really don't. And honestly, I don't define myself by my military service, by my history. So many people do. And it could be the fact that I'm older. I'm not still a kid, but I think it was different when I was younger. I think perhaps we do sometimes put on this cloak of veteran and make it part of our being, part of our personality. And I'm really opposed to that now, later on in life. I have been for quite a few years, but I don't like people who define themselves that way. I'm more than a uniform that I wore, and so are you, and so's everyone else, and so's the guy who shot bin Laden in the face. Everyone is more than that uniform that they put on. And I think everyone should accept that and present that to the world, and make it I'm also a veteran, or I also served, or I also went to Afghanistan, or whatever your story is. If you're defining your life by something you did 10, 20 years ago, it might be time to move on. Might be time to, pick up a new hobby, because your hobby is living in the past. And I'm not going to criticize too much. And different people deal with life different ways. I I don't want to tell people how to live, but that's just kind of my philosophy. And I love a lot of the things that I used to love back then. And so you don't always lose any of it. I still love all the stuff, all the rugged, manly bullshit we used to have to do all the time, that we complained about every day while we were doing it. And then now we look back with these rose-colored glasses, I guess is what they used to say, and think, man, oh, I loved it back then. No, back then you thought it sucked, but now you can look back and go, it wasn't that bad. It was kind of fun. Some of it was fun at the time, and you could realize it. But understanding where your life goes from here, no one knows. So every time I get a weird feeling in my chest, every time I get a little short of breath, every time I feel something new, my brain just instantly goes to, crap. Is it time? Is it okay? Am I going to go now? Because how is my body going to try to murder me again today? But I'm assuming that passes. I don't know. I'm going to be talking to some people who've had heart conditions much longer than I have, and dealt with some much more severe situations than I have, to ask them those kinds of questions. Like, does that ever go away? That paranoia, that anxiety, that fear, for you or your family? Does everybody just eventually go back to, hey, things are normal again? Because I don't understand it. I don't know if they do or not. That hasn't happened here yet, because, everyone's afraid still, because it's still fresh. It was just a month ago. And if I get up off of a chair too fast and have a funny look on my face. The questions get asked. Are you okay? What's going on? What's wrong? And I had to pee. That's all. I'm getting up. I had to go to the bathroom, or I need a cup of coffee. But yeah, those are the questions we're all going to have forever. And who knows? I'm sure it's going to be different for some people. For some people, it's not. But I know now when I start feeling anxious or feeling upset about things, and I know that's weird, but I can feel it in my chest. I don't know if that's normal, but getting upset right now, and it could be because, I don't know, my heart's still healing, but I will start to feel like I'm getting lightheaded and I'm getting short of breath. And, my heart, I can tell I'm not 100%. I'm not nearly 100%, but I'm getting better. I can tell those two things. But it's weird. And maybe my journey will help somebody. Maybe it won't. Maybe you'll just laugh at me and go, this goofy sumbitch came on and put on a podcast, did all this weird stuff just because he wanted to talk about having a heart attack. Give it a rest already. But I don't know. It's fun to do. It's therapeutic for me, and I like doing it. And maybe you like listening. Maybe you don't. You don't, hey, turn it off. Nobody's twisting your arm or whatever. But yeah, who knows? I'm trying to stay within HIPAA guidelines, stay within the law. So at the cardiac rehab place, I ask them, hey, can I take a picture of this screen that you have on your computer right now? It's my records. And they're like, no, we don't want you taking pictures or taking video, because some of them know that I'm doing this podcast. So they've started printing some stuff off for me. When I ask for it, I'm like, hey, well, can you print that off? Because I want to see this chart. Or, I want to see this this heart rate, monitor thing that you've got on there. I want to put that in my folder so I can look at it and maybe show people this is what you're going to look like, or this is what they're going to do for you. And so they're starting to do those things. So I'm getting print offs now. I got a couple of them yesterday. And, I like the people. It's not hard at this point. I'm sure it's going to get more and more difficult as time goes on. But right now, the difficult thing is going to be that this fat cat is trying to interrupt my podcast. Look at this fat ass. Look at him. He's cute. This is Vincent. Vincent is a pain in the ass, but he apparently likes hanging out when I'm doing a podcast. He's say hi, Vincent. He won't say hi. Oh, he's going to try. Okay, bye. So anyway, these are the things I deal with when I'm doing a podcast. But this is me, and this is life. And animals help reduce stress. I don't know if that's true or not. That's what they say, but I don't know. They don't have my animals. Anyway, part 2, episode 20, coming to an end. And I don't even know if I made any sense. I was rambling. I know yesterday I mentioned the color of the walls behind me. That was because what I was trying to get to was that the walls might need to be darker where I'm going to, film the podcast if I'm going to keep filming it. And I also have to start sitting up straighter and stop slouching all the time and sinking down into the thing. I have to work on these things. But yeah, that was my point yesterday was, boy, if I tell her that I want to paint these walls, paint this room a darker color again, she's going to be mad. Maybe not. Maybe I could just put curtains or something behind all this stuff and rehang it. I don't know. But anyway, I think the color of the walls is a little too light. So that's what I meant. That's what I was trying to get to last time when we were talking about the walls. But for now, I am going to transition to this thing. And hey, I'm going to call it a day on this. Episode 20, part 2. I don't know. Let me know what you think of the graphics and all that stuff. I'm doing this all by myself, so, let me know. Bye.